Hi, today we're going to talk a little bit about the unit circle. And we use the unit circle a lot in calculus. This is something you've got to get memorized, so here's a little intro to it. So the reason it's called a unit circle is because it has a radius of 1. So no matter where I go in the circle, its distance from the center is 1. And we are going to talk about how to measure radians on this circle. So a radian is like an angle measure, just like degrees would be an angle measure, but in calculus, we're just going to use radians to measure our angles. So when I start on the right-hand side here, this is a measure of 0 radians. And so we're actually thinking about this unit circle being on the coordinate plane. So here's my x and my y-axis. If I go all the way around my unit circle from 0 and I'm moving counterclockwise all the way around, I've gone a distance of the circumference of the circle, 2 pi r. Now the radius of my circle is 1. So when I go all the way around, I've just gone 2 pi. So another name for this position or this angle measure over here is also called 2 pi. If I were to go all the way around the circle one more time, I'd be going another measure of 2 pi, so that would also give us 4 pi. So over here, this position can be called 4 pi or 6 pi or 8 pi. Let's say we only go halfway around the circle. So we've gone from 0, we go counterclockwise, we've gone halfway from 0 to 2 pi. That would bring us to a position of pi. Then let's say we go halfway from 0 to pi. That would be half of pi, so that would be pi over 2. Let's go halfway between pi and 2 pi. That would be like 1½ pi. Another way to write 1½ is to write 3 halves. And so we're going to write 3 pi over 2. That's what we call this point on the unit circle, 3 pi over 2. Let's break these into smaller divisions. So going halfway from 0 to pi over 2, that would give me 1/4 of pi. So when I divide pi here, that's 1/4 of pi. Now if I draw in one more section here, dividing from pi over 2 to pi in half, that gives me another 1/4. So going around the circle here, we have 1/4 of pi, 2/4 of pi. This is 3/4 of pi, or more commonly called 3 pi over 4. Moving down into the third quadrant, we go a distance or a measure of pi over 4 past pi, which would be 1 1/4 pi. Another way to write 1 1/4 is 5 pi over 4. Over the next one, we've already written it, but couldn't we call this 6 pi over 4 if we're counting by fourths? And look, 6 pi over 4, that would reduce to 3 pi over 2. Going a little ways past, we get 7 pi over 4. If I were to go one more, that would give me 8 pi over 4, but 8 pi over 4 would just reduce to 2 pi, which just brings me back to where I started. Okay, so make sure you know this, write it down, snap a picture. This is one way we're going to divide up our unit circle. Let's go ahead and divide up the unit circle a little bit differently. So we are going to now divide this into sixths. So if I take this top circle and divide that into sixths, well, probably the easiest way to do that first is to divide it into thirds. Get that circle, or that a little bit better. So if I divide that into thirds up here, this is what we have here is 1/3 of pi. So I'm going to write that as pi over 3. Moving another third in this direction, that gives me 2 pi over 3, or 2/3 of pi. So do you see pi was divided up into thirds? Let's go ahead and now divide this into sixths, like we said we're going to do. So we're dividing each of those thirds in half again. And I'm not using a protractor to actually measure these out, so I'm drawing their approximate locations. So I divide pi over 3 in half, so that gives me 1/6 of pi. We already named this guy up here. He's called pi over 2. but we could actually think about this as sixths. We would have 1/6 of pi here that we start with, 2/6 of pi reduces to pi over 3, 3/6 of pi reduces to pi over 2. We could even call this 4/6 of pi, that would reduce to 2 pi over 3. Here we have 5/6, and we're back to pi. We're going to do the same thing in the bottom. Let's go ahead and divide this into thirds first. So dividing it into thirds. So if I add a third to pi, that gives me 4/3 pi. Adding another third to that gives me 5/3 pi. And then I get back over here on the right-hand side, or back to the x-axis, and I'm at 2 pi. One more division we're going to get here. We're going to divide these into sixths. So dividing each of those sections in half again. So moving past pi, I'm going to move 1/6 past pi. So if I add a sixth to pi, I get 7/6 of pi. This would be 8/6, which we already have reduced. 9/6. What is 9/6 of pi reduced to? It reduces to 3 pi over 2. You should already have that from your first picture. We have 5 pi over 3, which is the same as 10/6. And then we have 11 pi over 6, 11/6 of pi. And that's almost back to 2 pi. 2 pi would be the same as 12/6 of pi. So those are the last divisions you need. So you need to memorize the locations of all those radian measures from that first circle and then from these. You got this, Math Stars.